All right, strap in, everyone, because today we're diving headfirst into a topic that feels like it's straight out of science fiction.
Yeah.
Um, we're talking about NIX, and it's not just AI, but AI that can, well, actually do stuff.
What really grabs me about NIX is how it pushes past the limits of those single-purpose AI tools we see everywhere.
Hmm.
We're talking about building workflows that are really complex, where AI agents can actually work together, like in parallel, to accomplish much bigger goals.
Yeah, like going from asking a chatbot, like a quick question, to having an entire team of superpowered assistants just like waiting for your command.
Exactly.
Our source material today is the GitHub repository and all the documentation for NIX. And let me tell you, they paint a pretty amazing picture of what's possible.
The big idea, the core here, is autonomous agents that are powered by these massive language models.
Okay.
Think like GPT-4 intelligence, but with this extra ability to actually interact with systems, pull data, even control other software.
So it's not just understanding like the information, but actually doing something with that
Yeah,
understanding.
right.
I see. The source material describes IX as a platform for designing and deploying these agents, and they can be autonomous or semi-autonomous.
Exactly.
What blew me away was this no-code agent editor. You could build these agents by like dragging and dropping stuff.
That's something
It's
else.
wild.
Yeah, it's potentially a total game changer because you don't need all that special coding knowledge.
Yeah.
It opens up this whole world of AI development to, well, just about anyone.
Right.
Imagine small business owners, entrepreneurs, teachers even, being able to create their own AI agents without ever having to write like a single line of code.
So like, let's say there's a small business owner who wants to build an agent to, look at customer data and then create targeted social media posts. Is that something they could actually do with this like drag and drop editor?
Definitely. Yeah, they could tell the agent needs to access these data sources. Here's the analysis, like the parameters, and then set up the rules for how the content gets created. That no-code interface makes it like super intuitive to say, okay, here's the logic and these are the steps for the workflow.
Oh, wow. So it seems like this could be huge for organizations that maybe don't have like a huge budget to hire a team of, hardcore AI developers.
Right. It democratizes it.
What other features caught your eye?
This multi-agent chat thing is fascinating.
Yeah.
It's where multiple AI agents can talk to each other and actually collaborate,
Oh, wow.
like in real time.
Really?
And this is way beyond just assigning tasks. This is agents brainstorming together, sharing what they're finding, and changing up their strategies based on that information exchange.
So instead of just having these separate agents doing their own thing, they can like learn from each other
Yeah.
and like work towards a common goal. Do you have any like real world examples of how that could be used?
Imagine a team of agents managing a really complex project. You could have one agent scheduling everything, another managing resources, and another assessing risks.
Okay. And they're all talking, communicating in real time so they can change plans on the fly, see bottlenecks coming, even like suggest totally different strategies based on how the project is evolving.
That's a level of like project management that I don't know, I haven't really heard of.
It's next level.
Yeah, it is. It sounds like something that would normally need like an entire team of human experts
Exactly.
constantly watching and making adjustments.
That multi-agent chat just unlocks a whole new world of coordination and efficiency. It's like having a team of super specialized consultants in the background just working together perfectly.
That's wild. Okay, the source also talks about this smart input feature. That seems pretty cool.
Smart input, it's all about anticipating what you need. It looks at what you're doing right now and then suggests agents, files, resources, whatever might be relevant.
Oh, so like a super intelligent assistant that's like always one step ahead.
Yeah, always predicting what you might need next. There's even a video on the repository that shows it in action. It's amazing how smoothly it guides the user, giving them like the right suggestions at every step.
Yeah.
It's pretty wild.
That kind of intuitive interaction is what makes IX so promising. It really lowers the bar for anyone who wants to use the power of AI, even if they don't know, like, the really technical stuff.
Right. Okay, so we've been talking about all these AI agents and how they can work together and predict our needs, which is all very cool.
Yeah.
But how does all this actually work? Like, what's going on behind the scenes?
At its heart, IX relies on a message queue system,
Okay.
which manages the communication and the tasks, between all these agents.
Okay, so it's like the the system that makes sure everything's running smoothly.
Right. And this system, it lets agents communicate asynchronously, which means like they don't have to wait for each other to finish a task before moving on.
Oh, okay, so things can happen like in parallel.
Exactly. Like parallel processing, super efficient.
So it's like a relay race where every runner passes the baton as soon as they're done with their leg.
That's a great analogy. The message queue is like the central hub, making sure tasks are given out efficiently
Okay.
and the agents are working together in sync.
The source mentions something called a component config layer. What's that all about?
Ah, that's about flexibility and being able to expand. It lets developers bring in all sorts of external tools and services into their agent workflows.
So like if a developer wants to use a specific ADA analysis tool or a machine learning model, they can plug it into their agent's workflow through this component config layer.
Exactly. Think of it like a universal adapter. It lets IX agents connect to all these APIs and online resources.
That's like a superpower, basically.
Pretty much. It lets you customize those agents and really fine-tune them for specific needs.
That's amazing. Are there any limitations to that approach?
Well, while it gives you a lot of flexibility, there are some, inherent challenges with integrating external tools. Different APIs, they have different structures, different complexities. And to make sure the communication between IX and these outside systems is seamless, you need careful configuration and a lot of testing.
Makes sense. There are going to be technical hurdles, when you're dealing with all these different systems, but it sounds like the benefits are worth it.
Yeah, definitely. The ability to integrate all those external tools and services just opens up so many possibilities for what IX agents can do.
So we've been digging into like the technical side of IX,
Yeah.
but I want to hear about specific like real world uses. Where do you see IX making the biggest splash?
That's the question, isn't it? And it's one we'll dive into a lot deeper in the next part of our deep dive.
Yeah.
There are tons of potential uses across just about every industry. I mean, from like streamlining how we develop software to changing the whole game for research. The possibilities are like almost endless. Let's start with software development.
Okay. How would IX change things for like the average software developer?
Imagine a developer working on this really complex coding project. Instead of spending all their time researching libraries, writing all that boilerplate code and then debugging, they could have an IX agent do all that.
Wow.
The developer could just focus on the high-level design, like, the logic.
Right.
Basically, they're the architect, and the AI is taking care of the details.
So development cycles could get a lot faster.
Oh, yeah.
But wouldn't that also mean that developers need to like change how they think about their work?
For sure, yeah. It would be less about writing code and more about, kind of like orchestrating the code. Developers would need to be good at telling the agents what they want, setting the parameters, and then like overseeing the process, making sure the AI is getting the results they need.
So it's not about being replaced by AI, but like using AI to do more.
Exactly, augmenting our abilities.
Okay. What about content creation? Like how could IX be used in, say, journalism or marketing?
Imagine a content creator who needs to research a topic. They've got to gather data and then write an article, right?
Yeah.
Instead of spending hours online and putting all that info together, they could tell an IX agent to do it.
So the agent is like a super-powered research assistant.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
The agent pulls all the relevant information from tons of different sources. Then it summarizes the key points, and it could even write a rough draft of the article, in whatever style or tone the creator specifies.
That would save so much time.
Right.
But what about the quality? Can we trust like AI to write something engaging and original?
That's a good point. While AI has come a long way with natural language processing, it's still important to remember that AI-generated content, it should always be reviewed and edited by, actual humans.
So it's about like enhancing and speeding up the process.
Exactly. It frees up the human writers to focus on the stuff that really needs a human touch, like critical thinking, creativity, all that.
Right, right. The source also talks about data analysis as like a key use case.
Yeah.
I'm curious about that. How would IX be helpful there?
Okay, picture this. A data analyst. They're drowning in data. They need to find trends, figure out what it all means. Instead of running queries all day making charts, they could tell an IX agent to handle that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So the agent is like their own virtual data scientist,
Mhm.
finding hidden patterns and presenting everything in a way that's easy to understand.
Exactly. The agent can be trained to spot anomalies, to see potential risks,
Wow.
even create interactive dashboards so users can explore the data, more intuitively.
So that would totally change how businesses make decisions.
Right.
It would make data analysis
Yeah.
available to anyone, even if they don't have technical
Yeah,
skills.
more accessible.
Yeah.
What about research? Could IX help researchers?
That's where the multi-agent stuff gets really exciting.
Yeah.
Imagine a whole team of agents, they're working together to go through scientific papers.
Okay.
They pull out the important findings and, get this, they can even suggest new directions for research. That's like having a team of research assistants that never sleep.
Exactly. Working 24/7.
But how would these agents, coordinate all of that?
Well, through the multi-agent chat, of course. Remember, they can talk in real time, share what they find, debate different ways of interpreting the data, and then, collectively build this really comprehensive understanding of all that research.
It's like having a hive mind of, AI researchers
He really is.
all working together.
Yeah.
That could make scientific discoveries happen way faster.
Absolutely. And because IX is open source, there's no limit to how much it can be improved.
Okay, so speaking of open source, that raises an interesting question. What does it mean to have a platform for developing and deploying AI agents that's open source?
It's kind of a double-edged sword,
Okay.
On one hand, open source is great for collaboration, and it lets innovations happen really fast.
Right.
Anyone can contribute to developing MyX, so we could see new features and improvements all the time.
It's like crowdsourcing the development of the next generation of AI agents.
Exactly. But, and this is the other edge of the sword, there are downsides. The biggest one is security.
Right.
With open source code, it's harder to control, who has access
Yeah.
and to make sure it's not being used for bad stuff.
So there's this balance, right?
Yeah.
Between encouraging people to make it better and making sure it's safe.
Exactly. Finding that balance is the key.
It sounds like a tough challenge.
It is. But the developers of IX, they know all about this.
Okay.
And they're putting a lot of effort into making sure IX has really strong security.
That's good to hear.
Yeah.
Okay, we've talked a lot about how IX works.
Yeah.
We've looked at all sorts of uses for it. And we've even gotten into, the ethical and security stuff.
Right.
But what about the big picture? Where do you see IX going in the future?
That's a really fascinating question. I think we have to look at it with a mix of optimism and caution,
What do you mean by that?
I think IX could change everything. I really do. It could change how we work, how we learn, even how we think. But we also have to be aware of the potential problems.
Right.
Like with any really powerful tech, there's always the chance of unintended consequences.
So it's not just about building the tech, but making sure we use it the right way.
Right. Ethically. And we need to be having these conversations now while it's still early.
Well, I think we started that conversation.
Yeah.
We've given our listeners a good overview of IX, what it can do, and how it could change things. What would you say is, the most important takeaway for them?
I think the main takeaway is this. The way we work is changing. It's becoming more and more collaborative.
Yeah.
And IX is at the forefront of that change. When we use the power of AI agents, we can do more than we ever could before.
That's definitely exciting.
Right.
And maybe a little bit scary, too.
A little, but like you said, the important thing is to be smart and responsible.
Yeah.
As we move forward with developing and using AI.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We create the future. And with tools like IX, the possibilities are, well, they're pretty much endless. It's mind-blowing to think about how IX could change, entire industries. Where do you see it taking off first?
One area that pops up is customer service. Imagine IX agents handling all those basic questions like troubleshooting the common problems, even giving personalized product recommendations.
Okay.
That would free up the human agents to deal with the more complicated stuff.
Right. So it's not about getting rid of human customer service, but making it, better,
Yeah.
more efficient.
Exactly. Augmenting it.
What about industries that are, super data heavy, like finance or healthcare?
Oh, yeah. Those are perfect for IX. In finance, you could have IX agents tracking market trends, analyzing investment portfolios, even giving personalized financial advice, based on someone's risk tolerance and goals.
That's, incredibly powerful. But couldn't that lead to, bias or even manipulation? How can we be sure these IX agents are, giving fair advice when it comes to something as important as, personal finances.
Yeah, that's a really important point. I think transparency is key here.
Okay.
We need to be able to see how those agents are making their recommendations, make sure they're not like carrying over existing biases
Right.
or basing decisions on data that's, incomplete or just plain wrong.
So it's not just about building these like super smart AI agents. It's about building them responsibly,
Hmm.
making sure they align with like our values.
Exactly.
Okay, so what about healthcare? How could IX help patients and improve, health outcomes?
Healthcare has like endless possibilities. IX agents could analyze patient data, spot potential risks, even suggest treatment plans that are personalized.
Wow.
Imagine an agent that looks at your medical history, your genetic profile, your lifestyle, and then recommends the best treatment.
That sounds like, I don't know, something out of Star Trek or something.
It's pretty amazing.
But what about privacy? Like data security? All that patient information is super sensitive. How do we make sure it's protected when, AI agents are handling it?
Data security is the most important thing, especially in healthcare. We need like really strong encryption, strict access controls, and those auditing procedures need to be super rigorous, to protect all that patient information.
So there are a lot of things to think about, right? Like we need to implement IX in a way that's both helpful and ethical,
Right.
but it seems like the benefits are, worth it.
I think so. IX has the potential to like completely revolutionize how we work, how we live, how we interact with the world. But it's up to us to make sure we use it wisely.
So we've reached the end of our deep dive into IX.
Yeah, it's been quite a journey.
What's the one thing you want our listeners to remember?
I think the most important thing is that IX, it's not some like magic solution. It's a tool,
Okay.
a powerful tool, yeah,
Right.
but still a tool. How well it works depends entirely on how we choose to use it.
So technology is only as good as, the people using it. We need to be smart, responsible, and, think ahead when it comes to developing and using AI.
Exactly. We're the ones who create the future. And with tools like IX, we can make it more efficient, more fair, and, more fulfilling for everyone.
That's a great point, and a really optimistic way to wrap things up. So until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep diving deep.